Welcome back to more year-end content, a few weeks after everybody else did their year-end content. I know everyone else has moved on to talking about flower shops and Broadway girls, but look, first we gotta count down the best country music albums of 2021. On the whole, I think there was some incredible country music released in 2021. I had like 25 albums on my short list for making this top 10 video. And even with all the music I listen to, I think it's important to say, I probably listen to a fraction of the actual amount of country music that gets released. I mean, every week there's like a dozen albums, and so it's silly to think I can get to all of them. I didn't, and like I say, with all my lists, this is just my opinion based on what I have heard. But I like to think it offers a pretty good cross-section of the independent world, the mainstream, and everything in between. At number 10 is the only EP on this list, Midland's The Last Resort. Now I'll admit this is something of an overall achievement award for Midland after their 2021 that saw them releasing the Sonic Ranch, which was kind of an acoustic extra bonus album of some of their early material that they had recorded. And with songs like Champagne for the Pain and Runnin' Wild, it was just gorgeous and vibey. But I feel like the best elements of Midland were really captured on this 5-song EP called The Last Resort, which is woozy and western and naughty and just lush and beautiful. All the things we have come to expect from the sparkly, perfect production of Midland albums. My favorite Midland song ever is one called Put the Hurt on Me from their album Let It Roll, and I feel like the exact kind of romantic, a little bit tortured vibe of that song is captured on almost all of the songs here, especially my favorite and the single, The Sunrise Tells the Story. The moon saw it all through thin. But then you got kind of dancier, more upbeat tracks like Two Step on there as well, and overall, it's just a really great time. Why Midland does not connect in the mainstream more and just have the most gigantic sales, I'll never know, because this stuff is country, it sounds awesome, you hear all the instruments, you get beefed up harmonies, it's just great. And so I really hope that they kind of have that one moment where it all just clicks for them, because it's like it's stylish country that even mainstream haters can admit is pretty darn good. At number 9 is Chapel Hart and their album The Girls Are Back in Town. This album is on here because it was probably the most surprised and most charmed I was by an album all year. I first saw Chapel Hart on a random TikTok and I just liked how they sounded. I looked up their music and saw that they had this new album out. And sonically, this album kind of goes to a lot of different places. You get really straightforward country and sass on songs like You Can Have Him, Jolene, which is basically about like, I'm not gonna fight for a man that wants to cheat on me. You can have him, Jolene. You get really kind of rocking, almost like Jason Aldean, little bit bro country, redneck sounding country rock on songs like Jesus and Alcohol and The Girls Are Back in Town. You get kind of sensitive little lullabies like Angel and Jackie's song, and then you get Tailgate Trophy that just made me laugh so hard. This song is a complete roast of these tailgate anthems. You're looking for a pretty little thing 'cause you need a little bling bling sitting. It's almost like a little bit of a 1950s inflected Queeb Sisters-esque version of Girl in a Country Song. There's a moment in that song where they say, don't care how you roll, and it's clearly referencing This Is How We Roll, and they do this kind of like a big vocal silliness. Don't care how you roll, sort of making fun of that song, and it's just hilarious and ballsy. Like I said, the sonics on this record go to a lot of places, and I think it's kind of messy, actually. This is not a perfect record with perfect production by any stretch of the imagination, and yet it has a confidence about it and like this real Gretchen Wilson energy of like, we are proud of who we are and we're not changing for anybody, and it just is really irresistible, and it made me laugh a lot. And when music elicits a genuine reaction in me, you gotta drop all your pretenses and all your desires to be this like serious artiste of a critic, and you just gotta embrace it. Now, given that I just said I loved a roast of This Is How We roll, you might be surprised to know that a member of Florida Georgia Line has my number 8 album of the year. It's Brian Kelly and Sunshine State of Mind. Feeling anything but blue with a redfish on the line. There is a people pleaser side of me that doesn't want to put this album on here because I don't want people to say, how are you going to put a member of Florida Georgia Line on your best country music of the year list? I got a new truck, I got a new ride. And you know what? I am not gonna listen to that voice because this was my most listened to album this year. When Spotify Wrapped came out, this was my number one. And I did go to Florida for like 3 weeks, and given the Floridian themes of this record, it was so fun to listen to down there. But I also just think this record is a complete happy vibe with super smart writing, way more country production than you might think, and overall it just is a nice like pop country beachy album.
I could get used to that. There's a highway out there.
And it really surprised me and a lot of the music community with its sheer focus and likability. Like if this album were a fashion show, it would probably be considered the most consistent collection in the season finale of Country Music Project Runway. Like this man really found a way to name every single aspect about beach life that hasn't been used before in a song. Whether he's talking about the cobblestone streets in Savannah, or he's talking about haciendas, or he's talking about crab traps, or he's dropping boats by name like the Warwolf. I really felt like transported to Florida when I heard these songs. When he talks about saltwater kisses and key lime pie, that takes you straight into Key West, and it's just good writing. And then I think the production on it is really lovely. I'm kind of an asshole to Corey Crowder's production a lot of times, but I love how it sounds on this. You can hear all of the instruments. There's that beautiful acoustic guitar on Songs for You.
And I'll grab my old guitar.
There's a ton of fiddle on songs like Highway on the Water. Party on the Beach is a jam. Beach Cowboy brings that kind of like surfer saunter into the mix. Brian's got a really great voice, and it's just kind of simple and clear. He's not a huge belter, but he just kind of delivers these with the laid back beachiness you kind of want. And then you add in all the aesthetics for this album, and it just feels so well considered. This is a cared for project with focus, and it really won me over even more as the year went on. So it's my number 8 for the year. At number 7 is an album that is not all about the lighthearted, beachy vibes. It's Morgan Wade and Reckless.
I wish I'd known you in your wilder days.
Morgan Wade just tore onto the scene this year, and I think surprised everybody. No one knew much about her, and I feel like at the beginning of the year, it was just a lot of talk of, oh yeah, there's that girl with all these tattoos, and she has a kind of raspy voice, and Jason Isbell's guitarist Sadler Vaden produced her debut album. And then I feel like there was a large portion of people that just discovered her while trying to type in Morgan Wallen, and they got to Morgan W. and were like, who's Morgan Wade? But the buzz and the hype and the excitement was not unwarranted at all, because this album is amazing. It's sort of this grungy, alt-rock country thing.
I'll always be my own worst critic.
But it's not just the cool production, it's also Morgan's gravelly vocals and the way she sings with so much conviction, and then her searingly honest lyrics about kind of sobriety and regret. She almost reminds me in her writing style of BJ Barham from American Aquarium. It's those things that bring this record together and just make it soar. Morgan is really hard on herself as a songwriter, but I think it is in that kind of pointing the finger at herself that she almost reveals a little bit of hope about kind of who she could become. You don't bother feeling so bad if you don't feel threatened by some better version of yourself that's out there. I feel that's very much a sobriety thing, and I think it's captured really well on this record, as are these themes of like longing and sexiness, and you know, there's songs like Take Me Away where she wants to get laid down on the floor of the kitchen.
So lay me down on the floor in your kitchen, show my angry heart.
And there's this nostalgia on tracks like Wilder Days, where she wishes she could have known this guy in his wilder days. And I just think Sadler Vaden did such a good job on the production. It's kind of washed out where you want it to be and reverby where you want it to be. This record has aged really, really well as time has gone on. And hilariously, I just checked my Instagram while filming this. Morgan Wallen just posted that people should get on the Morgan Wade train. So there's officially Morgan W solidarity. At number 6 is the self-titled album from Tristan Merez.
Where the neon lights.
I would say of all the albums on this list, this is probably the most straightforward country and generally crowd-pleasing sound of the whole bunch. The same dynamic duo, Alex Torres and David Dorn, that helped produce Gabe Lee's Honky Tonk Hell, my number 1 record of last year, is also working with Alex Torres, and it has Just a fabulous sound. With songs like Day Drinking, which was co-written by Chris Stapleton, or Where the Neon Lies, which features Ronnie Dunn, that have just these super broad, big melodies that you could hear like playing on national radio. Same with Two Beers on the Bar. Some of the guitar licks on this album remind me of the Buck Mason era of country music, where it's just these fat guitar lines that lead into songs that I love. Tristan has such a good voice. When he belts, you really realize, like, damn, you can really sing. And I also like the choices to bring in so much of his Texas roots and a little bit of that influence on songs like Texas Swing. You get those beautiful Western vibes that just sing, and some accordion. Who doesn't want some accordion on a country record?
That's how we do the Texas swing.
You add in the steel, the fiddle, the great vocals, and I just feel like a proud basketball coach that is like, good for you, Tristan. You focused on the fundamentals and you made something great. And it wouldn't be a Tristan Merez mention on this channel if I did not say he's got some of the best shirts in the game, courtesy of Rock and Roll Denim, although Ian Munsick has given this guy a run for his money in the cool shirt department. My number 5 album is Long Time Comin' by Sierra Farrell. Now, if you're a big country fan, or if you keep up with kind of the bluegrass and Appalachian worlds, you've probably already heard of Sierra Farrell. She had that super viral Gems on VHS session that's been on YouTube for years. But this is actually her debut album, and that is crazy to think about because this is such a fully realized project. It is complex and musical and jazzy, and it brings in like this New Orleans influence along with the Appalachian bluegrass feel. And so you've got stuff like West Virginia Waltz that put you in the middle of the Smoky Mountains. And then you've got songs like Why'd You Do It that make you feel like you're in sort of some seedy brothel on Bourbon Street. And what these songs really show off is a free-spirited performer that is Sierra Farrell. She is willing to go to crazy places with her range, and boy does she have a huge range, and she's got a strange and unusual voice. Sometimes it almost reminds me of like Edith Piaf. It's got this kind of reediness in its upper register, and I happen to love that, but I'm sure it's polarizing, but all great art is. Sometimes she's got kind of an edge to her on songs like Why'd You Do It or Far Away Across the Sea. Other times she's really reflective on beautiful tracks like In Dreams, but I really love when she's just doing a sort of straightforward, folksy, almost conversational love songs, stuff like Bells of Every Chapel, her collaboration with Billy Strings, or my favorite track on the record, Silver Dollar, which is just a total toe tapper that's got everything. It's got amazing fiddle in it that's sort of creaky and dancey. It's got major tempo shifts, and it's just got her belting at the end with almost a laugh. When I say she's free-spirited, I really mean it. On this song, she says, "All that I want is the chance to surrender all of the love I have inside of me," which is such a cerebral and sweet and funny way of saying, like, let's hook up. This record just kind of dances along and is yet another piece of evidence that so much of country music's sonic revolution is coming from Appalachia. And while we're talking about Appalachia, let's jump from West Virginia to Kentucky for our number 4 album, which is Cole Chaney's Mercy.
See the water boil, hear the mountains laugh.
This album is so gorgeous. I found it incredibly breathtaking and transporting. In the same way that I said Brian Kelly's took me to Florida, this took me to Kentucky. And you were getting a young man's clear-eyed take on his surroundings. He sees the pain of kind of coal country and this industry that's been left behind on songs like Ill Will Creek and Coal Shooter that kind of takes you down into the mines. But then you get this really sort of hopeful perspective on songs like Another Day in the Life.
Joy and simple things, staying halfway sane, just another day in the life.
Where he's thinking about the kind of simple pleasures of the country life and fishing and prayer that kind of give his life shape and meaning. And in a way, the writing on this record a little bit reminds me of some of the themes that Ed Sheeran talks about on his non-singles when he's thinking about what it means to become an adult, a good adult, and to care about the place that you're from. And I think his voice is so good too. It's got that kind of holler sound, that kind of extra bleeding vibrato that a lot of these singers have.
Never done, always climbing.
That's gorgeous, and there's just simple guitar, a lot of mandolin, and a ton of fiddle. A ton of the kind of like mountain fiddle that's not trying to be like super smooth like you're a member of the Corrs. Cole is a young gun, and I know him and Logan Halstead both are kind of getting ready to lead, continue leading this Appalachian revolution I've been describing. Also, check out the end, like the last 7 minutes of my Sturgill video if you want to hear me wax poetic about Appalachia. Okay, before we get into the top 3, a couple honorable mentions that didn't quite make my top 10. Cody Johnson's double album Human is filled with sturdy, beautiful country songs about life and love and even death. Carrie Underwood's My Savior project is probably the most country thing she's ever released and has some gorgeous renditions of Southern gospel classics. Sturgill Simpson's The Ballad of Dude and Juanita is a concept album that takes you on a journey of a woman being kidnapped and rescued, and it's just so cinematic in its scope. You can kind of close your eyes and be in this outlaw movie. I also have Miranda Lambert, John Randall, and Jack Ingram's The Marfa Tapes collaboration, where they just put out these beautiful, plaintive, and sometimes playful songs about Texas that is just, a cool, risky quarantine move for one of the biggest movers and shakers in all of country music. I'll just tell you everything else on my very long list I was kind of considering. Billy Strings, Lainey Wilson, the deluxe release of Haley Witters, Morgan Wallen's Dangerous, which I was hard on that album for being a double album, and so many of the comments are just going to say, how is Dangerous not on here? But I think there is a robust album if you were to cull from those 30 songs, but as a 30-song project, it's hard for me to give it a better grade than I gave it in my original take. Dylan Carmichael's record I thought was really cool, Emily Scott Robinson's American Siren, Alan Jackson's Where Have You Gone, Charlie Marie put out that project Ramble On. I know she said she's going to take a little break from music, and that's tragic to me because that album's just good, funny, insightful. And I also had like Flatland Cavalry in the mix here, Colby Acuff in the mix here. But with all those honorable mentions done with, let's get into my top 3. At number 3 is Charles Wesley Godwin's How the Mighty Fall. I didn't know how Charles was going to be able to follow up Seneca, which just sort of blew everyone away back in 2019 and established him as one of the most interesting songwriters and vocalists in all of country music. And I'm happy to say that those same abilities are super on display on How the Mighty Fall as well. I feel like he really nailed this album. Instead of retreading some of his own perspectives and doing more sort of first-person tales of these boom towns and the kind of world of coal, there's a lot more storytelling on this album, almost like Charles has decided to walk around one of these abandoned towns and just kind of reflect on things that might have happened up on that mountain. Like maybe there was this outlaw blood feud between two thieving families. There's another moment on here where he sees a message written to a guy named Jesse on a wall, and then he kind of unpacks this whole relationship and says, Jesse don't hear you and neither do I. And you're kind of left to wonder, man, is he just telling the story of this couple and this girl that wrote this kind of message pleading for her man Jesse to take her back? Or was he implicated? Was the girl that wrote that his ex too? And he's saying, no, we've both moved on from you.
Well, Jesse don't hear you, neither do I.
There's a certain poetry and kind of mystery in his song. And sometimes these tales are very macabre, like on Cranes of Potter, where Claire slept around and then, But they're just so freaking gorgeous, and Charles's voice is so one of a kind. There's tracks like Needle Fall Down, where he does these just sort of vocal inflections that are so unusual, how he draws out his vowel sounds. And then, my very favorite overall sound and lyric and vocal on the record is absolutely Temporary Town, which is like the most romantic song about wanting to just have a little piece of land and kind of let the Blue Ridge shut you out from the rest of the world and to like build a home and build a family. I mean, it is like a song about commitment that captures that kind of like on the solid rock feel of the mountains. Love Charles. I could ramble on about this record. I kind of want to just because I didn't do a full review on it, but we don't want to be here all day. My number 2 album is Carly Pearce's 29 Written in Stone.
Heard about those women who didn't have a clue.
I don't know that I have ever experienced a bigger turnaround in my passion for an artist than I have for Carly Pearce this year. After 2 albums that I thought had some really pretty ballad moments, but then overall just felt like standard derivative pop country, she just came out swinging in the wake of her divorce from Michael Ray and just made a really searing, really country, really just great, emotive, funny, sad, dark, honest album. This record is very direct and accusatory, saying like, you were drinking too much. I'm tired of your drinking being my problem. And songs like Next Girl are warning the next girl like, hey, here's what happened to me. This same thing is gonna happen to you. So just beware of him.
Knows how to make you think you're the best thing, but I know what happens next, girl.
And if the record only had that kind of finger pointing, it would be extremely unpalatable. But I think what makes the record completely shine is that Carly also shows off her own insecurity, her own embarrassment at her divorce and how she's not where she thought she would be in life at this point. And on the song 29, she says like, 29 is the year that I got married and divorced. This is supposed to be a time where I'm living it up, and now this is a year that I'm never gonna live down.
If youth is wasted on the young, if I wasted mine.
You also hear that same woundedness on songs like Should Have Known Better or Messy. So much the theme of this record is how she's taking that pain and just expressing it. She's sort of like facing it head on and turning it into music. And on the track Dear Miss Loretta, which is actually a duet with Patty Loveless, she's singing about how she always loved Loretta Lynn's music, especially being from the same part of the country as her, but now she understands it.
Now I know why you sing that way.
Now she knows how to sing songs like that. And I think it's like true. You know, I'm looking at an artist that has fully blossomed and now is just willing to kind of like put her heart right out there. And the writing is awesome. And it's so much countryer than her other stuff. You know, she worked mostly with Shane McAnally on this record rather than her late producer, Busby, who passed away. And, you know, I'm certainly not cheering on anyone's passing, but I think this is a better match production-wise, and this music is just, it's just a lot more rich and alive. Even songs on here like the current single with Ashley McBryde, Never Wanted to Be That Girl, it's like a non-murderous version of Two Black Cadillacs. You just hear, it just feels alive, and the vocals are awesome, and man, I'm just so impressed with this record, and I'm so happy. This was supposed to just be an EP. And I'm so happy that Carly and her team decided to stay in the 29 era because they knew something good was happening. But my number one album of 2021 is, I feel like you already know it, Mike and the Moonpies, One to Grow On.
And every hour on the hour.
I got hooked with Mike and the Moonpies on Cheap Silver and Solid Country Gold, and damn did I get re-hooked on Mike and the Moonpies with One to Grow On. This album is so excellent, and this band is so excellent, and I love this sound of country music with a ton of steel, with really intricate, beautiful, great lyricism, and with just such agility in the vocals. Sometimes you want to dance, sometimes you want to cry, sometimes you want to laugh, and sometimes you're just sort of looking up at the sky in wonderment about the things that you are hearing, and it's just good. Now, this is Texas honky-tonk music through and through. A lot of this album is about the love of that kind of little world. Songs like Social Drinker is about looking at the little kind of weirdo barflies at your local haunt. And then songs like Paycheck to Paycheck capture the spirit of a band that might play in a bar like that. But it's the heartfelt storytelling on this record that take it a notch above just being really solid musically. Hour on the Hour is about a guy that just wants to escape his memories of this girl, but he keeps hearing this song every hour on the radio. And the back and forth between the vocals that he's singing and the way the steel is moving and kind of almost mirroring what he's saying, that was probably my favorite just musical moment I had as a listener all year.
But you can keep your shot of whiskey.
And when Mike belts, oh my gosh.
But I don't need no troubadour.
Such good dynamics as a vocalist. I also love the storytelling on Brother, where a guy heads down to Mexico to find his long-lost brother and say that their father has passed on and they've struck oil. And I already mentioned this lyric when I talked about this album earlier in the year, but it bears repeating. The love that he had for my younger brother spilled from his lips like the bubbling crude is just like one of the best lyrics of the whole year. And the idea that like a babbling oil brook from his mouth came this love for his son is like just so Texas, so oily, so lovely, and just, I mean, that's what good songwriting is. It's thematic. And then the songs about commitment, like whose side you're on, they just have that really intricate like guitar work and steel work on them that just make it unfathomably good. So good. This whole record is so good. Love having it as my #1 record of 2021. And now that I've given you my top 10, I would love to hear some of y'all's favorite country albums from this year. So let me know in the comments down below, or let me know if you love any of these ones. And stay tuned for a little bit more wrap up. I know I'm behind, but guys, just be patient with me. I'm working on hiring someone to come, help me get this into a more sustainable lifestyle, because I cannot redo the up and downs of 2021 again as I'm like, a YouTuber that loves to be in existential crisis mode. So stay tuned. More is coming. I love you all. Goodbye.